Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sim Experience South Africa stream. You're watching Aussie V8s, and our drivers are making their way onto the track for qualifying. So it's round 7. We're racing at Surfers Paradise. So for those of you that don't know the track, it's a street circuit on the streets of Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia. The track was established in 1991, and it's 4.47 kilometers on the track, even though it might not look that way. So our current standings as is. So going out of race 6, Dennis Mitchell leads with 241 points, closely followed by Dani van Rooyen, and then Timo Smit rounding out third position. Then we've got Dylan Versaghi, Melvin Goos, Mornay Deploy. Another person that's been making a charge up the standings is Alistair Barnard in position 7. So he's only competed in 3 of the races thus far, and he's done really well to get himself up into the points. So yeah, well done to him. Then Sean Webber hanging out in position 8, Pieter Geldenhuys, Pieter Grobler, Ian Upton, Craig Wesley position 12. And then Rowan Bauer, Mitchell Rust, Sean Johnson, Rian van der Westhuizen, Marius van Wyk. If I do remember it correctly, those two do know each other. So, and then James Leach, Harvey Goos, Dani Stander, Arman Nieuwoud, Jason Craig, and Skalk Versaghi at the end of the pack. So, our weather, it's nice and cool. Sun's out. As you can see, some light clouds, but it's the perfect weather for racing. The air temperature is nice and cool. The engines are going to get some nice cool air. Track temperature is only 31 degrees Celsius. I know it sounds hot, but by comparison, I think Silverstone this weekend was over the 40 degrees, and we're racing in the middle of the day. So looking at where we're currently racing, I know there's a few of the drivers that are racing this for the first time. They did a lot of preparation for yesterday's Formula 1 race. This is what the track looks like. So while Craig Wesley that we're currently following is going around the back straight, so he's going down the back straight, but the track starts at the Gulf Coast Highway. It's a nice long highway going into chicanes turn 1 and 2. Both of those are kind of non-issues. You just drive through them, although there's only space for one car to make a beeline through it, so don't expect any passing there. So it kind of just breaks up the straight so that cars can't draft all the way through. Then we've got Surfers Paradise Boulevard going into turn 3. Which is the View Avenue, turn 4. You can expect some interesting passing opportunities into that turn 3 and out of that turn 4, especially if you get a good exit for the Esplanade, sorry. Then turn 5 and 6, chicane that you need to pay a bit more attention to. You don't want to steer your car into the bollards. Then it's the main beach parade. Turn 7 is another non-issue chicane, and then turn 8, right angle to the left into Breaker Street, and then turn 9s and 10, kind of a bit of a bigger chicane to put it that way, so that's going to be Cellarizer Avenue and Hill Parade, and then where I think most of the action is going to be, turns 11 and 12, the Teta Avenue. You can see turn 11 kind of goes to the right hand side and then makes a sharp left, So not only is the car going to be off balance, it's also going to open up the opportunity for some interesting switchbacks, some passing opportunities of the like. Yeah, just a quick thanks to our sponsors, Alwyn, for making this possible. It's very nice that we get the support from you that we do, and it just makes it a lot easier to facilitate these races. Looking at the points, sorry, not the points, but at the times, we've got Dylan Fasaki with the best lap of 1:43. The times are still going to pop up on the track at the moment, so Dylan seems to be on his second lap. So the timing tower will catch up in a few moments. In the meantime, I am going to check who's shouting for who. Apologies that just popped up on screen. So yeah, Mornay Deploy wishing everyone the best of luck, and we do wish you the best of luck as well, Mornay. So he's driving the Coca-Cola livery. If I can find him on track. So that's going to be the Coca-Cola Holden, if my eyes serve me well. And yeah, he's also saying go get him, Timo. So a lot of guys there shouting for Timo. Then Melvin Goes saying he still doesn't know the track. Ouch. Well, Melvin, you're going to learn at a rapid pace. But yeah, we do know you. We do know you're very competent behind the wheel of a car. So we think you can do quite well, and you at least look slightly comfortable. Let me put it that way. Then Herman Nivo also saying, Melvin, you're a good driver, so go, brother. Then when I just pointing out the fact that he's been on his first lap only 30 minutes ago. So we'll keep an eye on you, but I'll maybe keep you off the commentators' cameras. I do know I picked up a bit of a commentator's curse for the F1 races. Leon Deploy, I wonder if that's any relation to Mornay Deploy, saying good luck to all, enjoy the race, and I see Harman saying, oh no, Harman saying there's echo. You had me worried there for a second, but it seems to be on his side only. But let me know if there are any audio issues. And then Husky News just wishing everyone a great race. Okay, times wise, so Mitchell clocking in with an impressive 142.675. I have seen, was it Mitchell or Van Rooyen, who put in a 141. So there's a little bit more time to be found, but you can see with this street circuit, it's all about those exits, and with the gaps between the different drivers, if you ruin your exit on one of the turns, it's going to cost you a lot down the straight. So just quickly jumping back to our track map, if you look at Tedder Avenue and View Avenue, those are going to be your critical points in your lap. If you cannot get those exits nailed, you're going to lose half a second, if not a second, of your time. But so far it's looking good for the likes of Dylan Fasaki and Mornay Deploy, sitting in third and fourth. I would expect someone like Timo to maybe get a little bit of a jump in there. So why don't we go on board with him? So he's currently busy with the lap and definitely getting some time. You can just see how claustrophobic these streets are. So this is down the last few turns before the main straight. You can see that right hand kink, and then as it tightens into a left hand turn, and now onto the straight. And you can see the amount of time that Timo gained on his delta here. It might just be that his previous lap wasn't really his best one, but he jumps into second with a 142.8. So that's well done for him, and he's making some more time. And there you can see the chicanes that I spoke about not really being an issue with these cars. But you're definitely not going to be able to follow two abreast through there. Quite difficult on the exit here. So very, very cautious on the power. It doesn't want to spin the rear of the car around. And you can see just so smooth and so controlled. Now on the back straight. Now this chicane I think is a bit more of a to and fro for the cars. You can see a bit of braking. And yeah, that's definitely going to be a lot of effort to really get the car turned in for that turn. The bollard staying firmly in place, even though the cars try and run through it. But yeah, again, non-issue of a chicane into the last few turns. So this 90-degree left-hander will give us a very beautiful view on the TV cameras, but for the driver, it's a tricky turn into the last portion of the circuit. I'm not exactly sure what happened with Timo's car. He might be running out of fuel, so we'll jump to someone else. So, Donnie van Rooyen will want to look at answering that lap from Timo Smith and see whether he can get into that front row. Further back, I see James Leach sitting in a very solid position 7. He's choosing to skip some of the chicane. I think he might still be playing around with some braking markers, seeing how late he can brake, what he can change up to find some time. And Sean Webber just pushing him down a position for his troubles. But this is looking good for James Leach. He's 2 seconds down on his delta. And if he can hold on to this is going to look really good for him. Very solid through that chicane. Now one of the trickiest corners. Coming very close to the wall and unfortunately sending it into another. So there's a pity for James Leach, but we'll be keeping an eye on him as the race or as qualifying continues. I do think he'll at least be encouraged by the time they picked up there. Sean Webber up on his delta, so also finding some tenths throughout the lap. You can see there the time starting to tick down as he kind of polishes his braking markers for this lap. Now back into the circuit through the chicane. Really want to be careful with the weight transfer of the car. And an exit has served him nicely. Right. Through the left-hander. I think that's a good exit for him. Yes, it is. So he'll be jumping a few places. Or at least one. It's going to come across the line. It's not going to display immediately, but expect him to jump up ahead of Mornay Deploy. Unless, no, that might explain some time that he gained. So that lap's not counting because he probably cut the track just before we jumped to him. So he'll have to have another go. Right, having a bit of a look at Grant van der Westhuizen. Unfortunately, someone behind him there having a bit of a shunt with the wall. But Rian is looking good on his lap, 7 tenths down. That's a very good improvement. And unfortunately, one of the drivers having a very difficult time with that chicane's braking zone. We've seen other drivers struggle there as well. So I think some drivers might opt to take that escape road if things get a bit hairy. Through the back end of the track, and unfortunately Van der Westhuizen loses it. Right, on board with Andre Hildebrandt. So this is one of our older racers. He's 67, if I remember correctly from yesterday. which is extremely impressive. I can imagine some kid out there being really proud of his grandfather racing cars on the streets of Australian street circuits, or Australian circuits in general, and then just sim racing in general. I thought everyone just showing that age is not an issue if you want to do this. It's pretty much anyone's game, and if you want to do well, you can definitely do well. Timo Smith, while we've been talking away, has snuck into first. And as I said, there's the 141 that we've been looking for. I know Timo didn't do one in practice beforehand, but he found the time, and that's given him a pole position. And now it's on to Van Rooyen and Mitchell to see if they've got an answer for this lap. I also see Gert Snijman in the chat saying good luck to everyone. And then Melvin Goos saying love the track. So I think, yeah, Melvin getting to know the track after a few minutes, and he's pretty happy with things. Timo Smith finding even more time. So has there been a cut while I was looking at the chat, or has he made it even more difficult for the other racers? You can see him still gaining time from that exit. He might even be getting a bit of a draft there from... No, that's too far back from Brandon Westhuizen. But Timo's going to cross the line and post a time of 1:41.232. And that's going to make the likes of Van Rooyen and Mitchell sweat. Then we also see Peter Galnhuys jumping up into 9th position. Well done to you. And yeah, it's looking really good. So just a note on track cuts. It is managed by the circuit settings. And so sometimes what looks like a line might not be registered as a line. And all of the drivers will be aware of that, as you can kind of push the boundaries during practice and see how far across the curb can you cut. And they'll have that to work with. I think Van Rooyen and Mitchell might be looking at that and seeing where can they kind of make a bit of time. So in those chicanes you can see a lot of drivers clearly cutting the corners, but I think the limit might only be posted at the bollard itself. Then, man, that's also been quiet at the moment. I can't really see him on track at the moment, so we'll jump to Mitchell Rust on an outlap, I presume. We'll maybe go on board this time. So as Rust prepares for another corner through that little chicane at the end of the circuit, just preparing and making sure that you get a good exit. So that little right hand kink just upsetting the car in where you're going to be able to brake. Here the car slightly bogged down as he gets going out of the lower gears. Vasagi jumping into 5th. And then down the straight we go. So first kink. Unfortunately, that's going to lose a bit of time for Mitchell Rust. Just diverting the car a little bit too much. So losing 5/10. I think we'll leave Rust to it for now. And then jump to another place. So, Dani Van Rooyen still on an outlap. Dennis Mitchell struggling with his current lap. Melvin Goos, let's see what he can do with his gained knowledge of the circuit. 1/10 down on his time. And looking... Okay, he's losing a bit of time, so he will only be able to match his current time of a 1:43.173. So Bornay in chat saying yes, the track limit seems to be the bollards. With the curves slight suggestions at this point. It might also be that you just need to keep one of your wheels within the circuit lines. Sean Weber still struggling with the lap at the moment. Dylan Pasaki on an outlap. James Leach having a bit of a slowdown somewhere. Greg Wesley looking good. Onto. Okay, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. Sorry, Craig. I do apologize. Should not have claimed it that soon. So, Donny van Rooyen finding some time down the back straight. Almost 1/10. He's going to need to be able to do more than that for the lap that Timo has put in. Timo just sitting in the pits. I think he might be spectating some other cars, just checking where they might be gaining time, that he's not gaining time. And just checking what they're up to in a general sense. But Rooyen finding heaps of time through the back end of the circuit. It's all going to depend on this one last turn. So, a lot of speed into the corner itself, but not as much on the exit. But he's still going to have almost 6/10 in hand. Melville Coast jumping into third, but Rooyen securing his second position with a 141.753. So well done to you. Melville Coast now looking very comfortable with the track, even though he's not been preparing for it that well. 6/10 up. This is going to be a monster of a lap if he can hook it together. So we'll keep an eye on him. See the tires just screaming for grip, almost understeering into the wall. 3 minutes left of qualifying, so this is going to be do or die for Melvin Coast. He's not going to have time for much more lapping after this, so we'll see what he can do. Keeping those wheels on the curb, so that's within track limits. Going down the back straight, he has lost some time through that chicane. Probably going to be kicking himself over that. Almost hitting the wall. But he has found time, so I think that is very unfortunate. So Melvin Coast deciding to rather steer out of the corner and avoid the incident. Dennis Mitchell down on his Delta. He's also going to want to stick in a better time, especially now that Coast has opened the door for him. Also, if anyone wants to do another lap, they're going to have to start venturing onto circuit. It takes 1 minute 50 seconds, let's say 2 minutes, to make a complete lap of the circuit on your outlap. So you do need to be careful that you don't get stuck in the pits if you want to do another lap. So we'll keep an eye on Mitchell as he goes through the chicane on towards the last turn of the track. Remember, exit is key here. It doesn't help that you throw your car in quickly, but you can't exit the corner. And Mitchell nailing the exit, finding some time. This might give him the position. So almost 6/10 on his time. What's it going to look? What's it going to look like? I suspect that's going to be Mitchell jumping into third position. I'm not sure why he's not going up. So there might have been a track cut in that lap, which explains why Mitchell hasn't jumped up. Albert is still going around, so he wants to get this last lap in and see if he can get onto the front row of the grid. 2/10 into the back portion of the circuit. Now we need to keep an eye on this chicane, and then you know that last exit is also going to be a tricky one. Looking very good here for Alcos. Unfortunately spinning out. I do see one of the drivers on the road has had a disconnection. If he is not able to rejoin before the start of the race, he might lose his position. Dylan Versace also down on his delta. Missing out on some of the time through the last portion of the circuit. Qualifying is coming to a close, so there's only 4 drivers currently on track. So we'll have to see who's able to post the fastest time. We know one of the drivers is going down the main straight at the moment. We'll soon see who that is. Versace unfortunately losing it. Mitchell secured in 3rd position. Monet Deploy is still lapping. He might get kicked back to pits quite soon. And James Leach finding a heap of time. So we'll keep an eye on this gentleman right here. Into the last turn. Exit is going to be key. Car seems a bit bogged down. And he's lost some of that time, but he's still looking very good in terms of his delta. So we'll see whether this is going to put him out ahead of Monet Deploy. And that's going to be enough to jump ahead. We'll see, does Monet have an answer for this? So Monet must have started his lap just before qualifying ended. He's finding good chunks of time. So looking very good into the last chicane. Slightly slow on the exit, but it's not going to matter. It's all going to matter on how quickly he can exit this corner. You can see he sacrificed a lot of speed on entry, but out of the corner it's given him heaps of time. So at least 4 tenths. I think James Leach is going to be very unhappy with this if this counts. And Monet Deploy jumping into 7th position. So your grid for the race: Timo Smit, Dalman Goos, Dennis Mitchell, Dylan Versace, Pieter Geldenhuys, Sean Webber, Monet Deploy, James Leach, Craig Wesley, Mitchell Rust, position 10, Grant van der Westhuizen, Marius van Wyk, André Hildebrand, and Harvey Goos, if he's still on here. So I'll just go to a quick ad, and then we'll be ready to get going with the race. and we're back. So we've got most of the racers gridding up on the starting grid. And then unfortunately we have lost one of our drivers due to some technical difficulties. So that's going to be why you see a gap on the grid in front there. Man starting in front is going to be Timo Smit. And then Melvin goes behind him looking at a good opportunity. Lights are up. And we're off. So Timo Smit getting a good start. Dennis Mitchell also looking really good there next to Melvin Goes. As we go down the straight. 3 abreast. As we see Melvin Goes looking for opportunity there. Timo Smit still leading. So Timo Smit, Dennis Mitchell and Dylan Fasaki all fighting here at the front. Melvin Goes dropping back. Further down the field, I see Peter Galnys also losing out to James Leach. James Leach coming under pressure from Peter Galnys as well. When I deploy, having a very, very fun scrap there with him. Back to the front, Timo Smit. Off on his own, Dennis Mitchell under pressure from Dylan Fasaki and the rest of the pack following closely behind. A lot of swapping happening. But on the race side, unfortunately, losing out to Hildebrand. Mitchell taking the escape road, not able to make that chicane, so that's going to cost him a ton of positions. And that sends Sean Webber into third. Another scrap here between Melvin Goes and Dennis Mitchell. So Melvin Goes speeding ahead. He's going to look at getting ahead in front of Sean Webber. At the back of the pack, Moray Deploy making the pass on Geldenhuis. And now looking at James Leach. So out in front, Vasaki is slightly catching up with Timo Smit. Timo Smit is just going to want to look at making this race consistent. On the inside of Sean Webber is Melvin Goes. And almost 3 cars abreast. Dennis Mitchell saying he wants in on this action and slots in behind Sean Webber. And that's going to cost Melvin Goes some time. Sean Webber leading this group of cars into the second lap. And then Timo Smit out ahead in first. Fasaki also having a bit of a battle with him there. But the action is here in the middle of the pack. Melvin Goes just tucking in behind Sean Webber, trying to see where he can find the opportunity. Up the inside, no, there's not going to be a gap, and he's slotting in behind. Some slight oversteer there from Sean Webber, and it's brought the entire pack with him. James Leach passing him as well. So Melvin Goes now in a battle here with Dennis Mitchell. In the background, Moray Deploy in position 6, passing James Leach. And now Melvin Goes having to defend from Dennis Mitchell. Dennis Mitchell trying to find the opportunity but has to slow down heavily on the brakes. And he's fallen behind. Further back, Sean Webber also looking at the back of James Leach, but not close enough to really make anything work. Up in front, Dylan Fasaki is now catching up with Timo Smit, and he's within drafting range. So he'll want to look at maybe getting a good follow through the last few turns. Into the last chicane we go. And still close behind. You can see Fasaki just managing that gap a bit so that he can focus on his exit for this last turn. And then we'll see how he catches up with Timo. So he's got the draft. It's going to give him an advantage. But not enough of an advantage as Timo Smit just speeds ahead. Already in the 145s, 144s. The Fasaki definitely gunning for Timo here. Everyone getting away as cleanly as they can. 2 of the drivers unfortunately falling down the pack as Mitchell Rust gets past them. Going back to Melvin Goes and Dennis Mitchell. They're on board with Melvin Goes and he's all over the back of Dennis Mitchell there. Mitchell able to make the pass while we were looking away. And Fasaki is getting very close here to Timo Smit. 3 tenths, 4 tenths into the chicane. Now, we've seen this be a very difficult braking zone for a lot of the drivers, but not for these two. Rust making his way up in the pack. Looking very, very solid. Bit of a drive back, but definitely making it work. Then Fasaki having a battle with Smits and Koos having a battle with Mitchell. We get both of those battles in view. Mitchell getting a very nice turn in through that corner. Right, on board with Fasaki and looking all over the back of Smits. Not able to keep up through the last chicane, but he might be looking at getting a better exit here. So 4/10 between the two drivers, and immediately Smith getting a monster of an exit. Further behind, two drivers are very close, Dennis Mitchell and Melvin Close. So Mitchell not trying to drop, but just paying attention to his own line as they go through one of the lesser impact chicanes. Close really wants this position back. He knows he can fight Mitchell for it. He's going to be paying close attention to where he's having some trouble. James Leach making the pass for Rene Deploy. Rene, unfortunately, catching a bit of a spin there, and that's going to set him back. Melvin Khoos alongside with Dennis Mitchell. Dennis has the inside for the chicane. This is going to be very tricky. And he slots in behind Melvin Khoos, deciding rather not risk it and continue the fight onwards. Khoos having a bump with the wall. This is going to open up an opportunity for Mitchell. And Mitchell able to pull past with the better momentum. Out in front, Vasaki very close to Timo Smith now. Getting a very nice turn as well. Timo Smith running deep, slowing down his car. And losing out on time. Somehow he's able to just still pull ahead. So it's very difficult to follow on the street circuit. Deploy is also now having a battle here with Geldenhuis. You can see him getting slowed down there on the apex. So Deploy back onto the drive back and looking for some good opportunities. Then back to Melvin Khoos. He's again behind Dennis Mitchell, so he's going to be really kicking him about the impact they had with the wall, that little scrape that cost him a lot of his momentum. But he knows where to attack now, he knows where he's faster. So we'll be looking forward to that battle continuing from there. Up in front, Timo Smith and Fasaki still in their own positions. And then back in the pack, Mornay Deploy catching up with Peter Geldenhuis. Peter Geldenhuis and Craig Wesley having a fight there. Craig Wesley hitting the wall and losing momentum. And Mornay Deploy also making it past. Back in front, Mitchell under pressure from Khoos into the braking zone of the chicane. This is where he lost a bit of time. And able to make it stick. So Khoos is still pressuring him, but he's controlling the situation as it currently stands. Both drivers not letting up. This is going to depend on who makes the first mistake, who messes up a braking zone. And speaking of it, Mitchell crashes out into the wall, and that's sending Melvin Khoos out ahead. Some of the drivers still coming up from behind. So Craig Wesley and Mornay Deploy closely following one another. And I think that might be... No, that's Peter Geldenhuis out in front of them. So they'll be catching up with him very soon. But yeah, Peter Geldenhuis doing well for the start of the race and for the momentum he's carried through. So we'll be keeping an eye on him. Then on ahead, Fasaki has fallen back behind Timo. At some point he was 1 second behind. So he's able to keep up, but he needs to be careful that he doesn't lose touch of Timo. And you can see there is the second gap coming in through the turns. So Timo is looking very solid at the moment. He needs to keep his consistency, and it will all be very good for him. Closest battle on track at the moment. I'm sorry about this, Mornay, but your reactions at the moment as you follow Craig Wesley into the back or the second straight of the course. You can see that gap just being so small. In the background you can see Sean Webber also closing in, and we know Sean's a very fast driver, so this is going to come into the mind of both Craig Wesley and Mornay Deploy, and might complicate things for both of them. Up in front, the gaps are starting to open up. Timo Smith just running away with the race. Not completely running away with it, but looking very solid. Now you can see Mornay in a bit of a sandwich here between the cars of Craig Wesley and Sean Webber. Sean Webber letting him know he's there, he's ready to take a position. And now it's a difficult choice for this man. So do you attack? Do you defend? What do you do? Goes through the last corner, getting a nice and smooth exit. You can see on his delta, on his steering wheel, he's making up some time, and Sean Webber is falling slightly behind. Craig Wesley making sure he makes no mistakes, and he gives no gap here for Deploy. Van Rooyen rejoining us, so he's going to be on a massive drive back. But it could count in his advantage. We do a second race. Sean Webber on the outside of Mornay Deploy, and not having the momentum, but that slip of oversteer from Mornay is going to give the gap for Sean Webber. So now the big thing is going to be who's going to end up where. We're 6 laps in, 8 minutes to go, plus an extra lap after that. Sean Webber is charging ahead. His next target is going to be Craig Wesley. We'll see where he ends up with that battle. Then Dylan Fasaki falling behind Timo Smith. He's now almost 2 seconds behind. And you can see in the foreground there, Timo Smith overtaking one of the back markers and just charging on ahead. So that's a nice thing about this track. You're not going to have that much trouble from the back markers. Peter Geldenhuys unfortunately seems to have had a bit of a collision with the wall, and you've got Craig Wesley, Sean Webber and Mornay Deploy that have driven on into positions in front of him. Craig Wesley now within striking distance from Sean Webber, and Mornay Deploy not letting up, so he's going to follow. So we'll see where these drivers end up. Melvin Goos is also creeping up on Dylan Fasaki. So we're keeping our eyes on the leaderboard a bit. Up in front, Dennis Mitchell looking at the back of James Leach, and I don't know how this slipped by me, but James Leach snuck ahead into 4th position. Slight collision with the wall there, and that's going to open up the position for Dennis Mitchell. But it's still a good position to fight for James Leach. Back to the trio, Mornay Deploy, Sean Webber and Craig Wesley all going down the back straight. Sean Webber looking very handy behind Craig there. It's all going to depend on the apexes and exits here. I do sound like your crew chief, but up the inside, this is going to be very tricky. Craig Wesley and Sean Webber. Craig backing out, not wanting to get a track cut registered to his name. And Sean Webber slightly bullying his way into 6th position. Mornay Deploy, unfortunately, with a bad drift, taking both himself and Craig Wesley out. Then jumping to Melvin Goos. He's got Fasaki in his sights. Mornay Deploy handing back the position to Craig Wesley, just making sure that something that might have been his fault is not going to hinder his opponents too much. But yeah, so both Pasaki and Ghost in reach within one another, and Timo Smith seems to have slowed down slightly. Either that or Pasaki and Ghost are both sped up, so it's going to be tricky now. Who's going to be able to defend well? Who's going to have to keep an eye on where they can attack? At the moment, for this man right here, Pasaki, he's going to want to defend. He's barely able to keep up with Timo. And defending is going to slow him down, so he's not going to be happy about the situation. Malmchos now within the second range. And looking at the backside of Dylan Pasaki. The rest of the pack kind of settling into their orders. But for now, this is the place to keep an eye on. Car slightly slowing down. You can see a bit of oversteer there as he exits the corner. And likewise on the timing screen, you can see him losing out time to Pasaki. Just an absolute beautiful track between the skyscrapers. We've got the sea quite close by. I think it's to the driver's left-hand side. But yeah, absolutely beautiful track. Goes catching up with Pasaki. Pasaki losing some time in the chicane. And now Timo Smith has joined the party as well, also within a second of Pasaki. Peter Kawa is also catching up with Sean Webber a bit further down the field, but for now the action is here between the three front runners. Into the braking zone. Timo losing a lot of time versus Dylan Pasaki. Dylan just getting pace out of nowhere. It might be that car of Malmchos in the background just spurring him on, making him realize he now needs to start pushing for this. 3 minutes to go. So that's basically 2 laps and then a third lap as well. But Royan has also joined us on circuit, so he'll most definitely be starting from the pole position for the next race. So while he's lost out due to technical difficulties, I think he might be very happy with that pole start. And he might be able to salvage some championship points out of this race. Or, well, out of this pair of races. Post now looking at the backside of Pasaki, catching up almost 5 tenths down at the timing screens. Almost 2 tenths down, so he's found heaps of speed through the main straight. And now it's going to come down to either picking an aggressive strategy where you try and attack as much as possible, or trying to see where you can just make sure that you maintain your position. You can see the pressure starting to form on Pasaki. Malmchos looking up the inside, not finding opportunity. He knows the chicane is coming and he can't make a move there. And that's exactly why these chicanes are on circuit. If it was just that long straight, it would be way too easy to just draw behind your opponent. So close, having a nice little battle here. Down the back portion of the circuit, we do have some back markers in the foreground. But that's only in front of Timo Smith. So now getting ready for the second last lap, and Pasaki feeling a large amount of pressure. Timo Smith is going to be happy with this fight that's happening behind him, because it means he can just focus on getting clean laps in. He's already opened up a 2-second gap. Sean Webber also having a fight with Peter Kaldenijs. I'll quickly jump and just see what's going on there. Unfortunately, Sean Webber going off track. So that's going to put him behind and drop him down positions. So Malmchos now just sitting behind Dylan Pasaki here, looking for a gap. It's going to be their last lap, and then they're going to have one extra lap after that. Rian van der Veste is getting out of the way, making sure that he's not interrupting the starters or the leaders' race. Vasagi with a huge amount of oversteer. Luckily, he's got the corner, saving him there from a potential pass. Post getting slowed down on the apex. So he now needs to tuck in behind Vasagi and continue from there. Into the chicane we go. Both drivers getting a nice exit, not really letting up. And we'll see where we continue from here. Vasagi braking a little bit, not able to turn his car as quickly as he wants to. Now through the back portion of the circuit. Who's going to have the better exit? Post getting very, very close to the rear end of Vasagi. Poor backmarker really doesn't know where to go. It's the chicane that they're coming through, and then this last turn. And Dylan Vasagi with a huge spin there, so that's sending Goos into second position. Vasagi now falling back to third. Dennis Mitchell is quite far back, so that's going to be a sigh of relief for Vasagi, but it also means that he lost out on that second position. Jumping further back, Craig Deploy is seeing Craig Wesley, my apologies, is seeing Mornay Deploy in his rearview mirrors, getting something to think about. Sean Weber also following behind him there. I expect he might just settle into his position and maybe pick up a grip place for the second race. Right, but not letting up even at the end. And this is going to be the final lap. So we've got the leader on the final lap. And Mitchell Rust also, sorry, I don't know what was happening with my timing screen there. Very close here to Wesley. Wesley's going to be sweating bullets. He needs to defend now. So Murray potentially on the inside, not able to outbrake, so he's going to slot in behind and look for another opportunity. Onto the back straight they go. Sean Weber is also potentially in a position to strike from if there's a mistake. So he's just making sure that he's there for any potential spins. Across the line goes Timo Smith, so he's going to be your race winner. Alvin Goos, second position. Dylan Vasagi, third. I think Melvin might be thinking about rather preserving his position, not putting too much pressure on Craig Wesley here. Mitchell across the line. And we'll sometimes see James Leach across the line as well. So this battle between these two drivers going on all the way to the end. But a very solid drive from both of them. So that's a nice clean exit. And I suspect that they will settle into their positions. James Leach coming across the line in position 5. Peter Galnaes, position 6. Craig Wesley, 7th. Mornay Deploy with the well fought for position 8. Sean Weber, 9th. Mitchell Russ still on track, going to be securing that position 10. And then we've got Rian van der Westhuizen, Andre Hildebrand, Marius van Wyk, and then of course Donnie van Rooyen rounding out the pack near the end. So it's going to be a reverse grid for the next race. And I see some drivers are still going around. I think they're just busy on their cooldown lap. I'm not exactly sure why the timing system is still allowing Van Wyk to be on track. And it's kind of jumbled everything around, so I can't really catch an eye of him. Just note, as we finish, I'm going to go to a bit of an ad break, and then I'll be back with you shortly. We'll just wait for this man to cross the line. Looking at the YouTube comments, Amran Nivo congratulating Melvin Goos on his second position. Yeah, well done, Melvin. Rudy van der Westhuizen shouting for Mr. Rust. And then also for Melvin Goos. So Goos doing very well to secure that second position. It's been one hell of a fight for him, but he's been able to make it. So Van Wyk just driving through everything until the end, and we're swapping over. So. And we are back. So everyone's on the grid, ready for the second race. They'll be happy to get going. So it's been a nice, clean first race. Some nice battles going on track. We've got the lights up, so the race director's having a bit of a chuckle, making us wait so long for the lights. Counts off, and the race is underway. So good start from the two at pole. Currently we've got Mitchell Rust in front of us, so into the front chicane we go. Sean Webber getting an extremely good start, so he's got Andre Hildebrand in front of him, and then Morné de Plooy also working his way up into the pack, into third. So just unfortunately a spin from him, so that's going to jumble up the pack. Hildebrand and Webber comfortably leading. Hildebrand making the move on the inside is not going to have the momentum to make the break, the turn, so that's going to send Sean Webber into the lead. Further back, Melvin Goos fighting here for position with Peter Geldenhuys, and you can see right behind him Timo Smith also working his way into the pack. Mitchell Rust making the pass on Andre Hildebrand. I apologize that I missed that, but charging on ahead and making use of this first opportunity. Further back, Timo Smith also making the pass on Peter Geldenhuys. Peter Geldenhuys not letting up, also under pressure there from Dani van Rooyen behind him. So this is going to get very interesting very quickly. Got a whole bunch of cars there. You can see Mitchell Rust in the foreground. Melvin Goos leading the collection of cars there with Timo Smith behind him, and then Andre Hildebrand and Dani van Rooyen. Hildebrand falling back a little bit, but it is a very difficult track to master if you have to fight for positions as well. further back down the field. I see some action happening around James Leach with Peter Kaldenhuis in front of him, so they'll also be looking at one another at the end of the straight. And there's not going to be much that he's able to do into the chicane, but out of it, he might have a bit of an answer. Rust falling back, unfortunately having a bit of a shunt. I think he might have touched the wall. Hildebrand also falling down behind Van Rooyen. You can see there. Kaldenhuis almost turning in on Hildebrand there. Some good evasive driving from both drivers, just making sure that they stay out of one another's hair. Kaldenhuis now along Hildebrand. We've got James Leach right behind him, so he might also get into the mix. So we'll see, into the chicane we go. Is Hildebrand going to back out? Is he going to stick on the inside? Hildebrand deciding to stick on the inside and still making the turn. James Leach falling behind a bit just to make sure that he's got the turn, and now he's made the pass on Hildebrand. Up ahead at the front of the pack, Timo Smith has worked his way into position 3, so Sean Webber out in front with Melvin Goos closely following him. Van Rooyen also jumping into position 4. A lot of things happening now. Timo Smith really wants to clear Goos as quickly as possible, but Goos knows that there's a bit of a battle between them. Sean Webber unfortunately also making a mistake and costing himself places. Van Rooyen now up in third, Rust into 4th as we speed along the main straight. James Leach also looking at the back of Peter Kaldenhuis. I'm not sure why Sean Webber is still showing in front of Peter Kaldenhuis, but there we go. Timo Smith now battling it out, duking it out here. Apologies that I'm jumping around so much, but Sean Webber, if we can find, unfortunately jumped to the pits. So a lot of jumping happening here. Right, we'll stick here with Timo Smith for the time being. Melvin Goos, sorry, and then Timo Smith. Now on the back of the straight, or the back straight we go, into that chicane that's caused so much trouble. And this time, it's Goos that's dominating the lead and making sure that he dictates the pace. I'm also going to jump further back a bit. James Leach and Mitchell Rust in a little bit of a scrap here, so having heaps of fun for this race. And Rust performing very well. So James Leach looking at the backside of Peter Kaldenhuis and able to go out around the outside, up the inside, and they're still alongside. Running side by side through the chicane. Leach has the line, now he's got the outside line, and Kaldenhuis is not letting up. So we'll see what Kaldenhuis has as an answer here. You can see him backing out. Leach unfortunately spinning out, and that's going to send Rust out ahead. Rust making sure he secures that position 4. Further down the pack, Hildebrand is also now closing in on Peter Kaldenhuis. And right behind him you can see the red Coca-Cola of Monet Deploy and Dylan Pasaki following him. Deploy making the pass on Hildebrand. And all kinds of different lines being run through that chicane. Deploy opting to do the escape road. I think he might have had to avoid some collisions there. You can see he gives back the position to Hildebrand. Up in front, so Timo still in the battle with Melvin Goos, but neither driver letting up. Timo knows he's been able to get the superior pace in the first race, but it's a whole different story when you have to follow someone. I'm also keeping my eye on James Leach. Side by side we go into the last chicane. Timo with the inside line. And is he going to be able to make it work, or is he going to have to back out? tucks in behind Goos, gets the better exit. Goos slowed down completely. Now we'll have a bit of a look. So you can see the drivers as they go down the straight. And who's going to get the better exit there, or better turn in for the chicane. So neck and neck through the chicane, and Timo takes the position, Goos having to take a bit of a cut to avoid an accident. And that's Timo Smit into the lead. Still the closest two cars on track until we get some of the different times from the other races. You see there in the background Van Rooyen coming into view. So this is going to be a bit of a worry for Melvin Goos. But I also suspect that Timo Smit wants to keep Van Rooyen behind Goos, since we're looking at the championship points here. So just to note that Van Rooyen is sitting at 220 championship points. He had no points for the previous race, or at least he had the least possible amount of points. And Timo Smit is sitting at 199 points. So that first win has put Timo out ahead of Van Rooyen. But Smit might want to capitalize on this and extend his gap even further. Remember, you can look at drivers such as Dennis Mitchell, and Mitchell is running in 8th at the moment. So there's a good opportunity for Timo Smit to get into the second position for the championship, or at least to get good points for our next round at Bathurst. The next round will be the final round. So this is do or die for Timo Smit. Melvin Goos not letting up, and Van Rooyen hunting them down. I'm going to jump to Versage. Dylan Versage in a scrap with Peter Geldenhuys. Peter having a rather rough race. You can see Rust out in front of them in the orange and black Ford. So Versage doing very well to keep up with Geldenhuys there. I'm just going to jump ahead. Melvin Goos. Sorry, I just jumped away from the Versage Geldenhuys battle. Versage overtaking Geldenhuys. Goos now hunts down Timo Smit. And so much happening on track. Donny van Rooyen back into the action. James Leach falling back. Seems to have hit a wall. Now side by side, Donny van Rooyen and Melvin Goos. Van Rooyen making the pass stick right before the chicane. And wow, they're close through there. You can see the speed catching Goos off guard as he hits the wall, loses pace, and now it's Donny van Rooyen hunting down Timo Smit. Van Rooyen needs to deny these points from Timo Smit. It's 25 points for a win, 20 points for second place, and those 5 points are going to be very critical for this championship fight. So Van Rooyen is going to be a man on a mission. He's got 9.5 minutes left to do the work. And 1.8 seconds to catch up with. So I'll leave them be for now. And Dylan Versage is now hunting down Mitchell Rust. So Mitchell feeling the pressure as he slams into the wall, that right hand turn, unsettling his car's balance, and as he spins out. So that's going to send Versage into 4th, doing very well to avoid him. And right behind him you can see Dennis Mitchell also hunting him down. Deploy jumping into 6th, utilizing that mistake from Rust. Melvin Goos very close to Donny van Rooyen here. Down the back straight of the circuit they go. Van Rooyen pulling out ahead slightly with a better exit out of the previous corner into the chicane. And this time Goos doesn't have the disadvantage of being caught out by the speed. And you can see that exit that he gets, giving him 2/10 over Van Rooyen. So Dennis Mitchell also falling down, James Leach falling down, so there might be something that happens. Melvin Goos definitely not letting this position up without a fight. That's going to be very good news for Timo Smith. Lots of jumbling happening in the middle of the pack. As Dennis Mitchell follows Peter Kalnies. On screen, Melvin Close on the rear end of Van Rooyen. Doesn't want to give up the second position. He wants to fight for it. You can see his time's improving on the Delta. He's pushing for this. He really wants to get this position from Van Rooyen. Absolutely fighting for it. Timo Smith needs to open a gap up here as well if he wants to secure a second win for himself on this evening. That's going to be very good for his championship fight. Close, finding a lot of time, and Van Rooyen not really having an answer for it. Van Rooyen very slow out of the exit of that corner with oversteer, closing off the door on the outside for Melvin Close. Melvin can't really do anything with the speed that he got here, so he's going to have to tuck him behind and make sure that he just gets a clean exit out of the chicane. Van Rooyen definitely doing well under the pressure, keeping Close at bay. James Leach jumping up ahead in front of Kalnies. I think that might be Kalnies dropping down the order a little bit. The back markers coming into play. And this is going to complicate things for both Van Rooyen and Close. Timo Smith just racing on ahead. We've got Ryan van der Westhuizen in front there. And it's going to be very difficult for him. He's got a few corners to give the space for the race front runners. But Rooyen kind of hurting himself through that corner by trying to overtake Van der Westhuizen mid corner. And you can see Close just closing down the gap slightly. Now into the 142s with our race times. Probably as good as it's going to get with the current fuel load and the tyres degrading, but Close falling behind slightly. He lost time through the chicane and then gained some back again. Running a bit of a deeper line. Slow down, side by side, up the inside. Melvin Close takes the position for second. Dani van Rooyen unfortunately loses his focus and spins out. That's going to cost him a few positions. And that's well done with Close, putting the pressure on Van Rooyen there. That's also going to possibly play into Verstappen's hand, but I think he's too far back to do anything. Jumping to James Leach, looking at the back of Rust. And definitely looking for a bit of a fight here. So into the few turns before the back straight. Leach on the inside. Is he going to have enough momentum? Outbreaks Rust and jumps on ahead. So that's going to be a well-earned sixth position for Leach. And Rust not letting up, so he wants to fight back. You can see him trying to pull alongside, but you're going to have to utilize the draft for that. He's not going to be able to do anything with the chicane, so he tucks in behind. And Leach is going to try and charge on ahead. That's some good racing from James Leach. We know this man has pace. Unfortunately, he does have a little bit of a spot of bad luck. But his skill on the track seems to be outperforming that at the current time. By saying that, I'm going to jump to someone else before I cause trouble. Never mind. Sorry there, Rian. So Craig Wesley out on his own, not really anyone to challenge him, and he can just focus on his lap times. Out in front, Timo Smith running away with the 11-second lead. I'm not sure how that happened, but that happened while I was looking away. So 3.5 minutes left. Timo Smith just needs to keep consistent. Apologies for the tongue, the tight tongue there. So yeah, Melvin Close also just looking to put in some consistent laps. Hildebrandt and Van der Westhuizen closest to having a bit of a battle here at the back of the pack. having some fun here on the track. So Hildebrand closely following Van der Westhuizen here. And Van der Westhuizen trying to recover from his earlier mistake. Through the SS chicane into the back portion of the circuit, this 90-degree right-hander. Up the inside goes Hildebrand. He's not going to find the gap, but wisely avoids any collision with Van der Westhuizen. That's going to set him back on his time. So unfortunately, a bit of a hasty move there from Hildebrand, but some good driving from his side, realizing that he was going to cause a collision and backing out of the corner. There's Mitchell sitting behind Mitchell Rust. Talk about trying to confuse the commentator, but probably the closest battle we've got at the moment. So 3 more laps if I'm going to guess correctly. So there's still an opportunity for Mitchell to make a move here on Rust, and Rust will just be trying to keep that gap as far as possible. Some stylish oversteer from Mitchell, but unfortunately that's not going to bode him well. In the foreground there we've got James Leach, who unfortunately ran into a wall. Right, there's Mitchell hunting to close that gap down. 8/10 between him and Rust. As we go towards the back end of the circuit. 7/10 now, so definitely a bit of a speed differential there, but not too much of a closing speed. Unfortunately, one of our drivers having a bit of a equipment problem. So down the back straight, Mitchell following Rust. He's not going to be able to make a move into the chicane, and he's too far back to make a move into any corner. But he runs wide of the chicane. That's going to cost him time. He's going to have to back off a bit. You can see the gap opening up towards Rust there. So Rust definitely thankful for that. I'll just quickly check where Timo Smith is currently on the track. So he's going to be doing at least this lap and the next lap. So 2 more laps. But in a very, very comfortable position. He's driven very well tonight. He's taken the opportunity to prepare where other drivers had other races to prepare for, and he's definitely made use of that. Further behind him, Melvin Goos in a well fought for position 2. Dani van Rooyen in position 3. So just comparing the points between Timo Smith, it's 25 points for the win, 18 points for third. So that's going to be a 7-point advantage for this round for Timo over Van Rooyen. If he can make it work, of course. Dennis Mitchell still fighting for it with Rust. So we just need Timo to cross the line now before we get our last lap. Back portion of the circuit. Mitchell now very close to Rust. 4/10 onto the main chicane. Mitchell just positioning his car so that Rust can see him in the mirrors, and he can just announce his presence to Rust. Mornay Deploy doing a very nice job of getting out of the way of these drivers. Although I think Mornay might have had a bit of a... Sorry, he's not a back marker, but he's been having some trouble. Speaking of trouble, Mitchell completely overshooting the chicane. And now has to drop back a bit. So now, coming under pressure from Deploy. As the 3 cars follow each other closely towards the end of the circuit. We're on the final lap. So these guys will be fighting for it tooth and nail. Mornay trying to look for an opportunity from Mitchell. Dennis Mitchell. Mitchell Rust just hoping and praying that this battle behind him is going to save his skin. As we go onto their final lap. So all 3 drivers very close together. Deploy struggling a bit with the exit of his corner. Oh, that looked very rough. I hope he's okay. And open up Mitchell. So Mitchell has now got all of his attention to focus on Mitchell Rust. We'll see what they're able to do in this last lap. So, last 2 turns before the back straight. Rust losing a lot of time with oversteer. Hitting the wall. The pressure is getting to him. And there's Mitchell doing well to avoid the collision. Out in front, Timo Smit taking the 2nd win of the evening. Well done to you. Melvin Goes in 2nd position. So there's Mitchell still hanging on here behind Mitchell Rust. Mitchell Rust fighting for the position. He really wants to get this 5th position. So Melvin Goes coming across the line in 2nd. Nice close battle here still going on. Van Rooyen securing 3rd position. Vasaki securing 4th. Now it's these two next to cross the line. Dennis Mitchell very close to the backside of Mitchell Rust. You can see there some slight oversteer. They're going to be neck and neck into the main straight. Not going to get a camera. So let's go on board with Dennis Mitchell. Looking at Rust. Is he going to be able to make it? It's 600th of a second, but it's not enough. Mitchell Rust getting 5th place. Dennis Mitchell securing 6th. Mornay Deploy coming across the line in a bit of a battered car, but in 7th. Peter Kalnes in 8th position. Marius van Wyk still completing his lap. Looking good for a 9th position. Craig Wesley a bit further down behind him. So you can see both drivers there. So we'll wait for them to cross the line. So that's a well-earned 9th position and 10th position for both Van Wyk and Wesley. And then we've got Rian van der Westhuizen in position 11 and Andre Hildebrand in position 12. With Leach and Weber unfortunately not finishing the race. I'm going to just get a few things ready and then we'll get Timo Smit in for an interview. Right, so I've got Timo Smit here with me, winning 2 races in one evening. I think you're going to be very happy with that, Timo. I've done some calculations on screen. I think it might be looking good for you for the championship points and you're back in the fight. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely ecstatic. Yeah, that was a tough race, both races. I must say, with the qualifying lap and this type of track, qualifying is extremely important. So, sort of surprised myself there with a pole, and then from there on, made a few mistakes. But at the end of the day, I still had Melvin and Dylan keeping me honest in both races. So yeah, I couldn't sit back and relax. So fantastic to actually to get 2 wins, and now we're really fighting for the championship. But it seems so. Yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, it's definitely going to come down to the wire at Bathurst. I know Bathurst is probably one of the most challenging tracks that we've got on the calendar. How do you feel about that track? Have you raced at it a lot before, or?
Not in Assetto Corsa. I think I played it on the PlayStation before a few years ago. So yeah, it's going to be one of those things where everything is it's a lot more challenging. Obviously, when you have a rig and a steering wheel and actual pedals. So I'm going to need to start to practice as soon as possible for that track. But yeah, what an absolute classic track to end the season off with. Looking forward to that. And yeah, congratulations to the second and third place guys as well. Yeah, and thank you for doing an excellent job on the commentary, Johan. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's always a pleasure, and there's always some really exciting racing to watch. The battles for this race have surely been interesting. And speaking about second positions, in that last race, there was one hell of a fight for second position between Melvin Goos and Dani van Rooyen. So you probably breathed a sigh of relief when Melvin Goos reclaimed the position there from Van Rooyen.
Yeah, I could see in my mirrors every time I have a quick look, I could see there was a hell of a battle going on there. So yeah, Melvin Goos, yes, was one of those hard races, and I thought, yeah, that's going to be an epic battle between those two. I had a bit of flashbacks with our previous race meeting when I threw it away when I knocked Melvin out. That was my mistake, but luckily this time around I sort of just held back, learned from the previous experience, and thought, sort of box clever. Think about the championship, and yeah, it ended quite well for me. Great.
It's definitely paid off quite well. So yeah, I'll definitely leave you to celebrate with the guys there in the voice channel. I just want to say again, thank you very much to Alwyn who sponsors these races. It really helps having that support from you. And yeah, for next week, well, I think it's next week. I'll just have to wait for it to roll around again. We are racing at Bathurst. So those of you that aren't familiar with this track, there's a lot of endurance racing that happens on the track, and it's got some really interesting sections, especially the downhill section coming down the mountain. It's going to be very, very challenging to the drivers. So looking forward to that. As you can see, the 25th of July, we'll see you right here for the final round on Bathurst. It's looking very interesting for a title fight. And we're definitely looking forward to you joining us. From me, Jan Karinas, again, thank you for all of the support. And we'll see you next time.